lot of people like it. I don't. Now this is obviously very roomy and very capacious, and you've seen tons of videos and reviews on the back seat. I don't care. Let's move on. One thing you will notice though is how clean the sill is down here. And I've been driving this thing in Texas rain, and obviously it gets very dirty out here. But there's a seal at the bottom, and the door actually curves underneath the seal, which means that they've designed this sort of like the Range Rovers, so that you don't get dirty getting in and out of the vehicle. It is easy to get in and out, but the driving position is ridiculous. There's no way you can get comfortable in this vehicle. And if they want you to drive this on road trips, I wouldn't. When they delivered this vehicle, it came from Detroit, and the clock was always an hour ahead, and I thought, I'm just gonna change the clock. So we go to time and date, and we go, okay, obviously the time source is from the navigation system, so it's getting it from the satellites up above. So it's very easy to turn daylight savings on or off, and it will calculate based on that. But what about the time zone? So this car came from Detroit, and I'm in Texas, so it was about an hour ahead. So we look, and wait a second. So we have Pacific, but then we have West America, East America, and Central America. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, there's Pacific, and there's Mountain Standard Time Zone, and there's Central Time Zone, but what they put here was Central America. Now think about that for a second. They have West America, Central America, and East America as time zones, and this thing is called Atlas. Central America has nothing to do with time zones. West America, there's no such thing. Pacific is a time zone. They can't even get this correct. See this? Fake wood. That's right, $49,000, and it's fake. You see these cup holders? They're too big for a venti coffee from Starbucks. And that's kind of sad, because what they think is that Americans want nothing but big gulps, and they want nothing but the large drink. Then that must mean this is your burger holder. It must be your burger warming tray, you know, keeps it nice and warm in the sunlight as you're driving along. The ride is atrocious. It's this wafty, wallowy, round ride, and it's cushy, and it's very American in a way. It reminds me of a 90s American vehicle, the sort of crappy cars that we never wanted to buy, and we bought German cars instead. And now we have a German car trying to be an American car, and by insulting me, they gave it the ride from a 1990s lead sled. And it's just not, I'm not feeling it, Volkswagen. Between the awkward seats, the unusual driving position, the stupidity of the time zone in something called Atlas. I mean, you've polished it up with certain things like radar cruise, and you've given it a digital display so I can change how things are going to look in here, and that's all cool, but it's just there to distract me from the fact that the fender stereo isn't that good. And the worst part of all is all the hard plastic. This plastic, this plastic, this plastic. Look at this, ready? Do you think I want that in a $49,000 car? The whole thing isn't even secured. But look at this. Look how cheap this is. It's all cheap plastic. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a gigantic porta potty on wheels. In other third row SUVs, such as, oh, I don't know, the Durango by Dodge, or maybe even, if you go a little bit more expensive, the Armada by Nissan, which, by the way, the Nissan Armada has the same amount of fuel economy as this V6 Atlas. And you have to get the V6 Atlas if you want all-wheel drive. So this thing makes no sense to me at all, and it insults my intelligence, because $49,000 gets you hard plastic, the worst fuel economy I've ever seen in a VW, and a V6 engine that barely moves this thing. And speaking of moving, just the overall size may be impressive for some of you, but the seats haven't been engineered for a vehicle this size. They're still too narrow for what this thing is. And when you look out above that hood from the driver's position, this thing is obese. You're obviously very inset from the door, so the seats are more towards the center than they are towards the outside to give you kind of protection from a side impact. But in general, just looking at this vehicle, it's way too ambitious for VW, and it's way too big for its own good. You get nothing of value, in my opinion, from the Atlas when you want to talk about something that is a luxurious 3-row SUV. And at $49,000, it better be. Oh, by the way, you can't get a cover for the tow hitch. You have to look at that. Look at this. All this is exposed the whole time. I wonder how long that will survive. Actually, you know what? I'm not even in the mood to drive it. I'm just going to park it. So that's it. Everyone may like or love the Atlas or call it the best SUV they've ever driven. I just came out of a Dodge Durango SRT into a Volkswagen Atlas VR6 SEL Premium with 4Motion, and I'm definitely not impressed. At $49,000, there is much to choose from, and this would be the first thing to cross off my list. I do know people who have bought the Atlas and love it, but they've never owned a VW in their life. Let me just back up the MPG claims. I probably shouldn't even be publishing this video, but I think it's worth showing that not everything about this vehicle is as good as you think it is. I mean, it does have a panoramic sunroof and it has a shade, but the shade can't be closed while the sunroof is open. And looking back there, things are kind of roomy, but I'm not impressed from the driver's perspective. Maybe from the passenger perspective it's okay, but as a driver, no thanks. You're watching New Car Spin. I'm your host Brian, and this was my take on the Volkswagen Atlas. Thanks for watching.